Indian legislation on the desk of a do-right congressman. He don't know much about the issues, so he picks up the phone and he asks for advice from the senator out in Indian country, a darling of the energy companies, ripping off what's left of the reservations. I learned a safety rule, I don't know who to thank. Don't stand between the reservations and the corporate bank. They send in federal tanks, it isn't nice but it's reality. Bury my heart in Wounded Knee, deep in the earth. Cover me with pretty lies, bury my heart in Wounded Knee. They got these energy companies that want the land. They got the churches by the dozen, wanna guide our hands and sign Mother Earth over to pollution, war and greed. Bury my heart in Wounded Knee, deep in the earth. Cover me with pretty lies, bury my heart in Wounded Knee. We got the federal marshals, we got the covert spies, got the liars by the fire in the FBI. They lie in court and get nailed, and still Peltier goes off to jail. Bury my heart in Wounded Knee, deep in the earth. Cover me with pretty lies, bury my heart in Wounded Knee. My girlfriend Anna Marie talked about uranium. Her head was filled with bullets and her body dumped. The FBI guy cut off her hands, told us that she died of exposure. Bury my heart in a wounded knee, deep in the earth, and cover me with pretty lies. Bury my heart in a wounded knee. We had the gold rush wars, we didn't learn to crawl, and still our history gets written in a liar's scrawl. They tell you, honey, you can still be an Indian down at the Y. On Saturday nights, bury me at Wounded Knee, deep in the earth, and cover me with pretty lies. Bury my heart in a wounded knee, bury my heart in a wounded knee, deep in the earth, cover me with pretty lies. Bury my heart in a wounded knee, bury my heart, bury my heart, bury my heart, bury my heart. Thank you, Ron. They do.
I have no percussion, but I do have some announcements. No comment. Good morning. My name is Alan Jenkins, and I serve as President-elect on the Board of Trustees of this Unitarian Universalist Church of Spartanburg. Welcome, everyone, whether you are joining us in person or online. Hey, everybody. You are valued and you are loved, and we are thankful to have you here with us this morning. The UUCS Board of Trustees would like to express our heartfelt appreciation for the continued care you've shown each other by honoring policies related to public health while coming together as a congregation in this space. We continue to review and update these policies on a 3-month cycle. We also appreciate the dedication and diligence of our church's ad hoc COVID committee members over the past 21 months. This committee has served our congregation exceptionally well, and the board would especially like to thank Chair Dr. Mel Fritchie and head researcher, the late Dr. Gary Snipes, for advising the board from a medical perspective. In our community and in our country, there is widespread access to vaccines, boosters, and other treatments. There has been a consistent downward trend of infections, hospitalizations, and deaths. However, the pandemic is not over, and we are not out of the woods yet. Children ages 5 to 11 are just beginning to be vaccinated, and winter months typically bring new risks for respiratory infections. Therefore, the UUCS Board of Trustees recommends that we remain cautious and respectful of current CDC guidelines. Vaccinations and boosters are recommended for all who are eligible. We continue to ask that everyone wear a mask regardless of vaccination status while indoors. Masks continue to be required for all who enter the RE wing. Friends, we'd love to have you with us, but please stay home if you are feeling unwell. And also, please honor personal space. And this is important, no shaming of individual choices. For the foreseeable future, hybrid options will remain available for worship, and when meeting in the sanctuary, fellowship hall, or wild hall, the HVAC system fan should be turned on for filtration and airflow purposes. The individual scheduling that meeting should follow instructions posted next to each thermostat. Throughout the pandemic, one of our most important goals has been to care for and support one another. We offer these options and guidelines as a means of continuing to grow and thrive together, even as we take collective and individual precautions. The UUCS board will reassess this policy, as well as the future of the ad hoc committee at the end of February 2022, though we recognize that there may be a need to modify and adjust that along the way. May we emerge from this public health crisis stronger together. In other news, There will not be a child care or RE services next week at the November 28th service. Children and youths are invited to join their families here in the sanctuary. Sunday, December 12th, is our annual Teddy Bear Sunday. Please bring a new teddy bear or other fuzzy stuffed friend to donate. We ask that items be in new, unused condition. All stuffed animal friends will go to the local police department and other children's welfare agencies to distribute to children in need or who might need to be taken from their homes in difficult family situations. Bears can be dropped off in room 6 in the RE wing. Be happy. Mary Underwood will lead 3 classes to help us get through the holiday season in this tough year. Her teachings and techniques will help us go beyond just coping with stress and pain to regaining our balance and, yes, our happiness. Mary's enthusiasm, experience, and education all make her the perfect person for this, and we are grateful that she is donating these classes to us. The groups meet in the fellowship hall and will gather again in December and January on dates to be announced. If you haven't registered, please do so now. 10 people are registered and we can have a total of 15. Speaking of being happy, I was absolutely ecstatic to see everybody at yesterday's UUCS annual auction. It was a blast, and dare I say it, a great time was had by all. On behalf of the board, I want to say again thank you to everyone who made the auction a success. How much of a success, do you ask? To answer that question, please welcome someone who is talented, energetic, and wonderful, my wife and this year's co-chair of the UUCS annual auction, Lee Jenkins.
Oh. That's a lot to live up to. Thanks. So I am so pleased to announce that we beat our goal and we raised $15,774 yesterday. So round of applause. I want to thank everybody who came out, everybody who donated either your time or items for the auction. I especially want to thank Virginia McLean, who is my co-chair, Brandon Carter, the stewardship committee chair who led the way, Carol Fuller, who did amazing things keeping us all on track, Fred Stoll, who set up all of our electronic needs, Joe Mullinex, who is an amazing auctioneer, Deb Williams, who kept us all hydrated, and then Joyce, Susan, Lori, and Chris were an amazing team who jumped in with both feet wherever I needed them all day. So yes, big round of applause to all of them. If you won an online bid or you bid on one of the paintings out in the foyer and you did not receive it, please come see me after the service. If you are not here in person today, email me at auction@uucs.org and we will make sure that you get your item. And we still have a few spots left for a couple of our dinners or events. I will be out in the fellowship hall if you want to sign up. And we are also still taking any runners or walkers who want to run or walk with Scott. So just come see me, and thank you everybody for supporting us and making this a great auction.
Do you want to run an auction? No. I do not want to run an auction. Do you want to pay your mortgage? I want to pay my mortgage. I would like for you to give a standing ovation to the people who ran the auction. And who are going to help me pay my mortgage. I was talking to some folks this weekend, and they said, well, how's it going at your church? And I had to stop telling them stories because they got so bored with all the good news. You all do so much. I want to ask you to turn back in your bulletin, past the notice about the Community Thanksgiving service, which I hope you'll go back and look at and come to on Tuesday, to this notice that we've included in the bulletin for the last month about the project we've been a part of for more than 20 months now, providing financial assistance for Latinx immigrants in South Carolina. And if you look on the back of that, there's a list of counties where we're trying to reach folks. We've been sharing this list, asking you to help us connect with people. And if you look at that list, what you'll see is 9 of the counties are now crossed off. As of this week, we have expended all of the funds we have available for those 9 counties. So I am saying thank you to you for the extraordinary work that you have done. In some cases, it has been people in these pews who have connected us with people in those counties that have allowed us to get resources to folks who are very isolated, who have been excluded from much else in the way of financial aid over the course of the pandemic. You have helped us move these funds and get assistance to people on whom we all depend. So once again, I want to ask you to give yourselves a standing ovation for what you've done. I'm serious. Please stand up and clap for what you have done. You can see that there are way more than 9 counties that are not crossed off the list yet. And if you know anybody in those counties, even the slightest connection, and you can share with them this project on the chance that through their work, a service agency they support, a congregation they're a part of, that they could help us connect with Hispanic immigrants in those counties. We need help making these connections. So please take this very seriously and do it. You know, the people that we're helping here in these most rural counties, they're some of the most isolated people in our state. We depend on them economically, but they are in many ways hidden from us so that they can remain here and work and to keep themselves safe. And for many of them, connecting is difficult not only because of that isolation and the political scapegoating and all that we know goes on, but for many of them, English is certainly not their first language. Spanish is not their first language in many cases. For a lot of these folks, indigenous languages of the Americas are their first language. And so there's kind of a triple jump that has to be made to connect and build trust. On our 2 continents, there are people who have lived here and moved across this land seeking work and a way to provide for their families for 13,000 years. The origin myths of some of the indigenous groups, even in this area, recall migration patterns from the south, from what we now call Mexico. And the staple of corn as a pervasive, sustaining crop throughout our 2 continents bears witness to the networks of trade and movement and migration that sustained life here for 13,000 years before at least my own ancestors landed on these shores. Our own tradition, the movement that we're a part of, through which we gather here today, its own history harkens to the Massachusetts Bay Colony, to Puritans. A lot of our origin is a reaction against that harsh Calvinism, the exclusion of people from community, the exclusion of people from love and grace. Our spiritual forebears, both the Unitarians and the Universalists, and a bunch of other people too, they could not live under the terms of those forms of exclusion. They reacted against. But this Thursday, when that friendly story of Thanksgiving is told, some of our forebears, this movement that we're talking about, telling a story about. And we know the story is way more than a friendly meal in November. That is a cover, pretty lie, for a sustained imperial assault to acquire land and wealth. What we're doing is not just helping people who have a need. It is that. But we are reckoning with our own history and taking resources that we really may not deserve to have in the end, and putting them back in the hands of people who've been in this land for my own ancestors more than 26 times the length of time that my family's been here. 13,000 years. And who still cultivate and sustain this land to our benefit. We live in vast histories of oppression, and it's hard to know what to do. But what we do is face reality and use our small minds and our weak hands and our strained hearts to try to turn time in a different direction. Thank you for being a congregation where we can tell the truth. Please help us reach these people to change this history.
Good morning. My name is Max, and I will be your worship associate this morning along with my friend Clemson. Our chalice lighting this morning is from Birds Will Sing by David Cantor. We pray for the health for all, the love of one another, to see the goodness in ourselves and our families, and the blessing of life. And meanwhile, as we slow our feverish consumption, the birds sing a little louder. The earth eases its breath, and we can sense a faint blessing in all this mess. The goodness of life is ours if we look deeply for it, and give thanks for what we have and who we have it with. Amen. Hope resides in us, and love abounds. Let us sing.
Raise a song of harvest home. Fruit and crops are gathered in, safe before the storms begin. God, our Maker, will provide for our needs to be supplied. Come to God's own temple, come, raise a song of harvest home. All the world is but a field, given for a fruitful yield. Wheat and tares together sown, here for joy or sorrow grown. First the blade and then the ear, then the full corn shall appear. God of harvest, grant that we wholesome grain and pure may be.
As Max quoted David Cantor, give thanks for what we have and who we have it with. And we're going to give thanks now in the form of greeting. And this is that time where we come together and we thank everyone for their presence here and their presence online and their presence even if they're in the Unitarian diaspora. So please honor everyone's personal space. And we're going to do something different. We're going to be followed by Sybil, who's going to be telling us a story for all generations. So when Sybil comes forward and begins her story, that's when we'll be seated. And if you're online, please feel free to greet everyone digitally by sending out an email or just giving a call. And at this time, let us greet one another.
Attention, I know. Do we have a gavel or a... This showed you this. There we go. It's, yeah. To get it to sing. Good morning, everyone. So normally for our story for all ages, I would invite children and youth up, but we're going to hold off on that just a little bit, just so we can kind of keep our families together and keep our social distance. So today, our story is about a mouse, a little tiny field mouse named Desmond. And Desmond thought he lived in the most beautiful meadow in all the world. So Desmond would spend all day playing in the meadow, and at night he would go to sleep under the stars. And he just loved his life, and he loved being in that meadow. Well, one night when Desmond was asleep, he woke up in the middle of the night, and he felt a little uncomfortable, and he tried to move and realized that his tail was caught under something. So he turned around and he looked behind him, and he thought there was some giant boulder, some big rock that had rolled on top of his tail. And it was starting to hurt, and it was a little uncomfortable. So he turned around at the boulder, and he started to push, and he tried to pull his tail, and he pushed, and he couldn't make any headway. So he was out of breath at this point. He sat down. He was kind of discouraged. He didn't know what he was going to do. Well, then it just so happened that a giraffe was walking by, and Desmond yelled out to the giraffe, "Please, please, can you help me? I'm stuck here, and can you just get this boulder a few inches off my tail?" So the giraffe looked down at him, way down, And he just kind of laughed the way giraffes laugh. And he said, "Silly mouse, that's not a boulder. That's an elephant sitting on your tail in the middle of the meadow." "Well, even so," Desmond said, "can you please just tell that elephant to move a few inches and get off my tail?" "Well," replied the giraffe, "you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. It's best to remain neutral." And Desmond kind of muttered to himself. He said, "Well, I don't appreciate your neutrality." So the giraffe wandered off, and poor Desmond tried calling out to that elephant. And of course, a mouse voice from way down on the ground and the elephant way up at the top. It's not going to be heard very well, but he screamed as loud as he could, "Please, Mr. Elephant, please, please, please get off my tail." And then he turned around and he tried to push that elephant off his tail again, and it still wasn't working. And so poor Desmond finally laid down. He was out of breath again, and along came a gazelle. And he said, "Oh boy, now I can get some help." So he said, "Please, Mr. Gazelle, please, please, can you have this elephant just move a few inches? You're tall enough to reach him, and he can hear you, and get him off my tail." So the gazelle looked down at him too, and he said, "I see your problem. But you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. It's best not to get involved in other animals' problems. Find it's best to remain neutral." So Desmond just kind of rolled his eyes and said, "I don't appreciate your neutrality." Well, it was morning by this time. Poor Desmond had been stuck like this most of the night. And he tried calling out one more time to that elephant, but the elephant didn't budge. Well, then he looked around, and coming towards him across the meadow was a mouse. And the mouse's name was Nelson. And Desmond said to him, "Nelson, this elephant has fallen on my tail. I can't move him. I'm desperate. I don't know what to do." And he said, "Can you please help me?" And Nelson said, "Well, of course." And so Nelson ran all the way to the front of the elephant, and he yelled up in his loudest possible voice, "Elephant, please get off my friend Desmond's tail. He needs to move away." Well, the elephant kind of wiggled a little bit, but he didn't move. So Nelson ran back around to Desmond. He said, "Okay, I have an idea. Just stay put, stay calm." Not that Desmond could go anywhere. So a little while later, here comes Nelson in the meadow, and he'd brought 3 friends, 3 other mice friends. And those 3 friends had brought 3 other friends. And so they all ran over, and they made a pyramid. They climbed one on top of the other, and Nelson climbed to the very top, right at the elephant's ear, and said, "Okay, Mr. Elephant, it's time to move. We're here, and you need to get off of our friend Desmond." So that elephant just sort of grumbled and said, "I'm comfortable. I don't feel like moving. I don't feel like doing anything. Just go away." So Nelson got more of his friends to come up closer to the elephant's ear, and they tried it again. They said, "Please, please get off Desmond's tail." And that elephant wouldn't budge. He just said, "I'm comfortable where I am. Go away." But then Nelson had an idea. He whispered to all the mice, and then all at once they yelled out together in their loudest possible voices, and you can join me if you like, "Excuse us. You have fallen asleep on our friend's tail, and you need to move, and you need to move right now." Well, this time, all of those voices together did make a difference. And the elephant, begrudgingly, said, "All right, I'll move. I was comfortable, but I'll move if you agree to stop making such a racket." So he did, and they quickly ran around to the other end of the elephant, and all the mice helped Desmond go free. And then they all went out and celebrated in the middle of the meadow. In the words of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say that you are neutral, that mouse will not appreciate your neutrality.
So how can we create a faith and be more like Nelson? Because we're a church without a creed. Instead, we opted for a stronger reflection of our faith in our community and bringing all of our mice together to move the elephant. Because that's what we hope to be. And our covenant is one way we share that meaning of community. So please say our covenant along with me. And like David Cantor says, through our covenant, this is the hope that resides in us and love abounds. We are a people of faith and hope. Together we covenant to strive to become our better selves, to honor both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to respond to systems of violence and oppression with the power of a love beyond belief, and get as many mice as possible to move the elephant. Now we're going to have a second physical representation of our sharing in our rippling bowl and in the offertory. We know that a sorrow shared is lessened and a joy shared is deepened and expanded. And we invite you to come forward and place a shell in the bowl to reflect your sorrow and or a joy. And also to contribute in whatever way you can to the running of our congregation. I'm going to ask Martha to help me out and help our friends online. She's going to place one shell for all the joys that are online, and one rock for all the sorrows that are for those online as well. Please join Martha and come forward.
Song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace from lands afar and mine. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams, and high and true is mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover, leaf, and pine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
Join me in silence. I love you. I forgive you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I was sitting on a bedside of a person who was dying. And there was a third person there, a healer, a person who had defied a lot of family expectations and gender expectations to choose a path, to accept a vocation, of bringing healing into very difficult circumstances, especially very difficult family circumstances. The three of us were sitting there, I at the foot of the bed on one side, and this healer in a chair on the other bedside, and this person we both cared about lying on the bed between us. The person who was dying was anxious. How do I do this? How do I die well? And especially in the complexity of my family, and I have never met a family that wasn't complex. We could all tell stories. How do I die well? The healer knew those stories. And the wisdom that they offered was this: as much as you are able, truthfully, authentically, not lies, but as much as you are able, before you die, say to the people with whom you're in a relationship these 4 things. I love you. It may be a messy, ugly love, a human love, but I love you. I forgive you. Don't lie. Don't need to fake it. There are some people that we may never be able to forgive. I'm not saying paper over it. Only as much as we are genuinely able to tell the truth. I forgive you. Please forgive me. Because in that humanness, I've done things too. And finally, thank you. I love you. I forgive you. Please forgive me. Thank you. Remember hearing those words come out of the mouth of that healer. It was as if they were being written across my brain. I can still see them, hear that moment, and hear that person's voice. This indelible etching of these words across my mind. And over the next days, I watched this person who was dying speak these words to one person and then another. I love you. I forgive you. Please forgive me. Thank you. And to see people change, to see emotion well up, to see physical postures change when these words are spoken. The power of these words when spoken with sincerity, with truth, not inauthentically, but with as much honesty as possible, and only then. When we are dying, our last acts carry an enormous power, a resonant power. And I watched from one person to another as that power moved, shifting even at that late moment the relationship between people. Beautiful and powerful to witness. Taking those words that are written across my mind and igniting them like a fire on my brain still. Watching them make this choice. Except in one case. When one person sat there to say goodbye, different kind of words were spoken. Not words of love. Not words of forgiveness. This is a person lying there dying who had suffered a lot of pain in their life. And at the end of their life, they chose to inflict that pain on somebody else. All this other wonderful action, but not for this person. And the echo of that wound inflicted in that last moment is enormous. It persists today, years and years later. In those last moments of our life, what we choose to do, what we choose to speak, they have enormous impact, for good or not. It matters what we choose. We share everything. We live in a reality in which we are interconnected. It's inescapable. We have a million different names for that reality. We have a million and one amazing debates about that reality and how to name it and how to describe it. Someone was standing in the sanctuary last night asking me, what is this place? And I said, it's a place that gathers because we don't believe the same thing. That's why we're here. Not because of a shared belief, but because of all this difference, that there's value in arguing about what that shared reality is. But fundamentally, we live in it together, beyond all of our ideas and words. And part of that reality, inescapable, is that our actions affect each other. What we do moves beyond us. And if we choose acts of compassion, acts of forgiveness, acts of truthfulness, acts of authenticity, acts of love, the resonance of that choice is enormous. The power to shift people's spirits, their minds, their bodies, their relationship with us, it is enormous. And also when we choose something else, it has effect. It isn't neutral. It moves. If words like this, I love you, I forgive you, please forgive me, thank you. If words like this are worth saying as our lives are nearing their end, then they are worth saying before our lives are nearing their end. And in fact, speaking only for my own life and some of my relationships, they may require some practice now before I get to then. There are some people that I do not want to forgive. In fact, I would really like for them to disappear. And in the end, it's not a very kind thought. I withhold on the action. But to say these words authentically, to say them truthfully, to figure out how to say them and to whom, to say them without lying. I'm not talking about being pious. I'm not talking about being religious. I'm not trying to trick you into anything that's not real. I'm talking about reality. I want you to hear me real clearly. I'm not trying to manipulate you or coerce you into anything. I want you to tell the truth. That's what matters most to me. But if I'm going to try that, something like that, if I'm going to be lying there one day and I'm going to read those words that are emblazoned across my mind, I can see them in fire right now across my brain, then I have some work to do now. If it's worth doing then, it's worth doing now. And being especially careful that whatever has been inflicted on me, that in that all too human way, I don't turn around and inflict it on somebody else. You know, when my ancestors came to this country, I believe that they came mostly for good reasons. I've got some rascals for ancestors, especially close ancestors who have not gone on to whatever lies beyond. But many of my ancestors came because they were persecuted religiously, because they were looking for political and religious freedom, because they had very little economic opportunity in their countries of origin, and they wanted something different. And from their limited worldview, as all of our worldviews are, they saw an opportunity and they took a risk to cross a vast ocean and to try something else. And the life here was hard. It took a lot of work. But they came from situations where pain had been inflicted on them. Class structures, religious structures, structures of violence and oppression, systems of violence and oppression. And when that whole movement of people got here, part of their understanding was a just action of violence to take away from other people so that they could have space. And look at the devastation that it wrought. When we experience pain, we have a hard work to do to not feel justified in putting it on somebody else. Today, the work that we try to do, in large part, is to take that pain that our ancestors inflicted, however good they may have been as individuals, however noble their self-understanding may have been, and to try to turn it to something different. That is hard work. I got to tell you, we may not succeed. And we may never see whatever little success we achieve. But when I see the effect of that pain inflicted, the possibility of turning it and changing it, it seems worth all the failure that we risk. It's the legacy that I would choose. Failure at trying to be a healer instead of success at passing the pain on. I love you. I forgive you. Please forgive me. Thank you. Hard words to practice long before our end comes. And if we practice, and practice again and again, especially when it doesn't go well, especially when forgiveness is needed, especially when love is about the last thing we can pull out of ourselves. If we practice, then we begin to create something different. It's something this group of people has been trying for a long time. Maybe different words, maybe different stories, but for a long time practicing. When we get sideways with each other, when we make each other mad, when we step on each other and have worldviews that collide, how do we find each other again? And it matters. It matters to try over and over again, even when it's so hard and we mess it up in our all-too-human way over and over. Last night, this congregation did an amazing thing. I'm not talking about the auction, although that was amazing. After the party, there's somebody's got to know this. After the party, there's the after party. After the party, there's the after party. After the party, there's the after party. We held this big party out here, the auction. And when it was over and we all went home to eat, another group of people came and gathered in the sanctuary. About 25 folks spread out all through the sanctuary. Less than an hour gathered together. A few of you came back and were here, observing the Transgender Day of Remembrance, an annual observance on November 20th, remembering by naming trans folks who have been killed by transphobic violence in the last year in our country. And those names were read in this sanctuary last night. And as people left, people who have defied family expectations and gender norms to be people of power and healing and truth and authenticity in this world. People who know a lot about how pain is inflicted. People who know a lot about love. Over and over again, they said, "You all have done a beautiful thing here tonight. You have done a beautiful thing tonight. I love you. I forgive you. Please forgive me. Thank you." In this congregation, for decades, when we have gotten sideways with each other and argued with each other and insulted each other and stepped on each other and not gotten to things quickly enough with each other, and gotten to things too quickly with each other, and wrestled and wrestled and wrestled with each other, and still found each other, and practiced that hard human love that's so worth offering at the end of our life that it's worth offering now too, because we've done that work. We created this space. And not just the space, but the spirit that dwells in it, that is our own spirit. A spirit that is alive and moving, that says yes to partners like PFLAG and the Uplift Outreach Center, and Speaking Down Barriers when they say, on a cold night in November, we need a place to honor those we love and to witness to the love that we believe in. Will you do it? I love you. Forgive you. Please forgive me. Thank you. So that we can write on the cold night sky in blazing letters of love and forgiveness to turn the wheel of history to justice when those partners ask us on a cold November night, could we gather here? In letters of fire we write in the night, yes, I love you. I forgive you. Please forgive me. Thank you.
At night we crossed the border, following a black robe to the edge of the reservation, to Cataldo Mission, where the saints and all the martyrs look down on dying converts. What makes the water holy is that it's the closest thing to rain. Stole a mule from Anthony, helped Ann up upon it, and we rode to Coeur d'Alene. Through Harrison and Wallace, they were blasting out the tunnels, making way for the light of learning. When Jesus comes a-calling, she said he's coming round the mountain on a train. Ooh, well, it's my home. Last night I dreamt that I grew wings. I found a place. They can hear me when I sing. We floated on to Hanford on a lumber boat, upriver past the fisheries and the mill towns. Like a stretch of future graveyard, she was driven to distraction. Said, I wonder what will happen when they find that they're mistaken. The land is to change, you ever change? We waded through the marketplace. Someone's ship had come in. There was silver and begonias, dynamite and cattle. There were hearts as big as apples, and apples in the shape of Mary's heart. I sat inside the gilded cage. The songbird always looked so plain. Ooh, well, it's my home. Last night I dreamt that I grew wings. I found a place where they can hear me when I sing. So they came with cameras Breaking through the morning mist, Preston businessmen, tycoons, Episcopal philanthropists lost in their appraisal of the body of a woman. But all we saw were lowlands, clouds clung to mountains without strings. At last we saw some people. At last we saw some people huddled up against the rain that was descending. Like railroad spikes and hammers, they were heading for the border. Walking and then running, and they were gone beneath the fog. But Anne said underneath their jacket she saw wings.
So for those of you who are not familiar with the program called Guest at Your Table, an important arm of the Unitarian Universalist Association is an organization called the UUSC, or the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. UUSC works around the world for social justice. Every year they select and partner with several individuals or organizations to work with under this program, Guest at Your Table, which kicks off today and runs through the first week in January. There's information on the table outside, but I'll just tell you briefly the individuals or the organizations they're working with this year. One is Alex Fuentes, and that is supporting the rights of migrant and refugee workers facing unjust working conditions in the Midwest U.S. meat processing plants. Myra Dagaipow is using her experience as a survivor of previous Burmese military junta violence to amplify the voices of Burmese ethnic minorities facing military brutality. Christian Guzman Merlo is helping revolutionize farming practices and gender justice in Nicaragua. Maina Talia is mobilizing along with the community of Kiowa Island in the Pacific to secure a resilient future in the face of climate change. And I know among these people that were selected, there were many, many others as well. On the table in the foyer are boxes and envelopes. You can make donations to UUSC in one of two ways. You can submit a check in the envelope and send it in directly. That's fine to do. Checks made out to UUSC, not UUCS. And you can mail that directly to them, or you can give to me in January or any time before January, and we'll send them in at one time. Or you can place a box, which are also out on that table, and place it on your family dining table and add spare change to this from now through the end of December, and then turn in the box to me by January 2nd. And then we'll write one check from the church for all of the coins collected. The beauty of the boxes is that it kind of reminds you as you're going along, especially families with small children, putting in a penny, a nickel, a dime. You can see those donations grow over the next couple months. But however you choose, no donation is too small, and remember, it's going to important social justice in the world.
It's a Good Day by Danielle DiBona. It's a good day. Breathe. Take a breath and feel the weight of the world lift from your body. Remember that you survived, thrived. Find your deep soul. Hold it in your hands and thank it. Thank that soul for its protection and power. We have survived. We are not the same. Yet we have survived, battered and bruised. It is a good day. Breathe. Take a breath and feel the weight of the world lift from your body. Let your heart be filled with peace. Let us each in our own way offer thanks for that which is most holy, for its protection and love. Amen.
I give thanks for you.
There's a woman with a baby sitting next to me as we ride the crooked train into New York City. She holds that child on her bended knee, whispers something that only he can hear. She said, I will always love you, no matter what may come. I carried you inside myself, the two of us are one. No matter how you fall down or how it comes undone, to me you will always be shining. And he stares into her brown eyes, into the face of unconditional love. I see a man laying in the street. He left his motorcycle at a high rate of speed. In his eyes there's a vacancy, but he seems to be smiling. Maybe he was a Muslim, a Christian or a Jew, but I hope that he was laughing when off that bike he flew. Did he struggle to believe, just like me and you? The ambulance is too late arriving, and he stares at the sky above, into the face of unconditional love. Sometimes I'm impossible, sometimes I rage and roar. Sometimes all the dreams I've spent strewn across the floor, and I see myself reflected in your eyes, the tragedy, the hope, and the fear. So in my hour of dying, when the light is clear and clean, if it helps me from the Bible, don't hook me up to those machines. Stay by my side as I slide into some peace. Give me strength over what I'm afraid of, in the face of unconditional love. We have spent time together, and these holy moments give us strength to go down the winding road until we meet again. We have spent time together in these holy moments. Give us strength to go down the winding road until we meet again.